England's squad for the Six Nations 2025 has been announced, folks. You got a new captain with Maro Itoje taking over as England captain. Jamie George is obviously still in the squad, but gets kind of demoted to one of three vice captains in the squad. You've got one Willis in the squad, which is better than no Willises. You might like to have two, but you've got one, and a couple of uncapped players in Caden Murley, who's been called up by England at least 2 times, maybe 3 in the past, still yet to get that first cap, and Oscar Beard in the midfield. But we'll go through the squad, the fixtures, and whether or not you guys think they can be contenders for this year's title, and how you reckon Steve Borthwick is going with the squad. He always gets called out for going a touch too conservative, but the squad is overall pretty young. He certainly could have gone a bit older. It's younger, especially with the likes of Dan Cole, not selected, and Joe Marler having retired. So the props in particular are pretty young. 3 hookers, Cowan, Dickey, Dan and George. Steady as she goes. There's no real changes there, other than the fact that Jamie George, who's 34, as I said, kind of gets demoted from captain to vice captain. Given that your front rowers always go off between 40 and 60 odd minutes, it does make sense to have a guy who's going to be on the field for the entire game, and that is going to be ITOJE. If you looked at the depth chart video we did of England's 2024 season, Maro ITOJE played every minute of every game. So he is Mr. Reliable. You might as well have a guy who's going to be near the action, and that is going to be Maro. Props-wise, Baxter, Genge, Hayes, Opoku Fojua, Rod, and Stewart. As I mentioned, young. None of those guys are even 30 years old. Genji is the oldest at 29 with 62 caps. He's certainly the most experienced of the props. He's also one of the vice captains. And then Will Stewart is the most experienced tight head. He's 28 and 45 caps. The rest of them are pretty young. These guys are all 25 and under and all single-digit caps. So you feel like, I mean, you guys are stacked for 10s. In England, you got Marcus Smith, George Ford, and Finn Smith. What you wouldn't trade, just one of those 10s for a elite level world-class tight head prop. But that's not the way it is at the moment. The props are obviously going to get better with age. These guys are all still improving in terms of age-wise. You probably don't hit your peak as a prop until your early 30s. But yeah, you would like to have a world-class tight head prop there at the moment, but as I said, we'll kind of wait and see. Opoku Fojua's only had the 1 cap. I think it's a loose head, but he's probably a tight head, with the other 3 loose heads in the squad being Baxter, Genge, and Rod. So yeah, we will kind of see how things go at scrum time. It just looks a little bit young. 4 locks with Chesham, Coles, ITOJE, and Martin. Like I mentioned, ITOJE being captain and having played every minute last year likely means he will be ever present as always under Borthwick and in 2025. And then George Martin's been his main partner in crime in that second row for England, so it's kind of hard to see that changing up because Borthwick does like a bit of consistency. Chesham, I suppose, could always go out onto the blind side if it calls upon, but then you've also got Ted Hill in the squad as well, who can kind of fill that kind of lock, loose forward hybrid role. But yeah, there's no real dramas in the second row either with those 4 guys selected. The back row is Cunningham South, the 2 Curries, Dom Brandt Earl, Ted Hill, and then Tom Willis. Pretty chuffed to see Tom Willis because from what limited amount I have seen of him playing this year, he seems to be in pretty good barnstorming form. But England, like many sides, have a lot of kind of classy loosies at the moment. It's just finding the balance in what is the best back row for England at the moment. Like the fact that you've got Earl, who's largely been deployed as a number 8 rather than a flanker for England, Tom Willis, who's largely a number 8, and then Alex Dombrandt, who's largely a number 8, seems kind of overkill. Does that mean Ben Earl goes to one of the flanks? Does Ten Hill go on the blind side as that kind of lock loose forward? Which Curry do you play? Because they have pretty similar games. I know that's a bit of an oversimplification. Cunningham South's been the leading blindside in 2024. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, no Jack Willis because he's playing his rugby in the top 14. But yeah, Henry Pollock's probably the other guy that's been bandied about as could have been a potential candidate for the England squad. But at only 20, you can kind of see why he's not being rushed in just yet. But yeah, I feel like Dombrandt could use he had a bloody good game in the Champions Cup the other day where he made like 24 tackles or something. But we're kind of really yet to see him replicate that Quinn's form at international level. So you feel like he could use a big tournament if he's given a bit of game time. If they use him as a kind of bench guy, I'm not sure you're seeing the best out of Alex Dombrand, but we'll kind of have to wait and see what Borthwick decides. 3 halfbacks with Mitchell, Randall and Van Portfleet. A lot of people crying out for Ben Spencer's selection, but again, at 32, I can kind of see why Borthwick is looking more to the future, especially seeing as Alex Mitchell's fit, and I think if he's fit, he's starting. So, yeah, it's basically who's going to be the backup. Do you go with Van Portfleet to potentially see out games if you're in a lead, because he is a guy who can strangle a game out, or Harry Randall with that kind of sniping action to look for some space from some tired legs? I feel like Mitchell's the starter, so it's not that big a deal. But Spencer at 32, you feel like hasn't really in his career been given a fair crack with England. 10s, I mentioned Ford, Smith and Smith. You guys are blessed with talent there. George Ford is approaching 100 caps, so that'd be a big achievement for him. He is one of the vice-captains again, and the only vice-captain among the backs. If he gets that honour, that would be a pretty special moment. And then remember, with Furbank out injured, there's also potential that Marcus Smith could end up playing a little bit of fullback, even if he was the preferred fly half for England in 2024. And then Finn Smith at 22 has been given a taste, but could certainly be given a little bit more game time to make sure his development at test level is not stifled. Midfield is also an interesting one because you got Beard, who is one of the uncapped guys, Dingwall, Lawrence, Slade. So you kind of got guys who all prefer or are all more usual 13s. Although when we had a look at the depth chart for Lawrence and Slade's partnership for England last year, it was pretty fluid. They didn't necessarily stick to the jersey numbers on their back. It kind of depended sometimes if it was an attacking or defensive play or whatever. But I don't know that you've got a proper out-and-out 12 there. That would potentially be a nice thing to have in this squad. You got a lot of guys who play 13 and can play 12 rather than a specialist 12, which is just interesting. And Henry Slade's been playing 10, hasn't he, for Exeter in recent weeks anyway. And then outside backs, I do feel like England are blessed also, especially with wingers. Freeman, Murley, Roebuck, Slightholme. Murley, as I said, back into the England squad. I would love to see that guy get a cap because he is such a lethal finisher. Roebuck showed what he can do when he got a chance with England. Likewise, Slightholme and Freeman. Man, Freeman's been absolutely ever-present. So, despite the fact that Fee Waboso was injured, I feel like England are dangerous on the wings if they can get some ball. There's not a heck of a lot of experience. All these guys are 23, 24, 25. Freeman's got the most caps of those guys with 16, but these guys are all gun players. So Feo Bosso's a miss, but as I said, I do think you've got some depth there. And then the two fullbacks, I guess, Daly and Stewart, with no Furbank available. Daly gets a bit critiqued, especially seeing as he is at the kind of more senior end of the thing with 32 years on the clock. He's also been playing all right for Saracens, though, hasn't he? He gets criticised for his defence, but I think his tackle percentage is better than Freddie Stewart's. I think he's in the 70s, Stewart's in the 60s. So, yeah, Furbank, you feel like is going to be a bit of a miss. But, I mean, there was a while where Freddie Stewart looked absolutely world-class. He got man of the match in a game not too long ago. He's been looking strong on the ball carry. So, yeah, those are your two fullbacks. Other guys who are potentially missing out, Ajomo was bandied about to be one of the likely bolters into the squad, but he has not made it. Maybe he's not had enough game time. I'm not sure. He's played a few games in the Champions Cup, hasn't he? But his time in the Premiership, I think, has been kind of limited this season. Other guys injured. ITOJE from Bristol, he's not selected. Ezekwe is injured. Northmore, Underhill. Underhill's absence is a pain, but then you've got Ben and Tom Curry, who are certainly proper tackling machines in themselves. And then Fasogabon, the prop, 20-year-old from Gloucester. No Gloucester players in the squad, but he's also listed as one of the guys who didn't make it due to injury, or at least on the kind of rehab list. So, yeah, it's not a huge kind of turnover. The change in captaincy is potentially the biggest call of all these ones for Steve Borthwick. It's not a kind of revolution in the squad, but he is trying to build a bit of consistency, isn't he? And it's just unfortunate that that Furbank, I think in particular, is injured. Now, are England contenders for the Six Nations? I think with this fixtures list, they have to be. If they don't, then something's seriously wrong. Because you got Ireland away, which obviously seems like a tough ask. They're the highest ranked of the Six Nation sides in terms of the world rankings at the moment. But they are without Andy Farrell. So if there's a time to catch them in this kind of intermediary period as they have the disruption with the Lions tour coaching, game one is the time to do it before they can settle in. Then you got France at home. You'd rather have them home than away. Then you got Scotland at home. They have lost their last 4 in a row to Scotland have England, but you're at Twickenham. You've got to be putting that as a game down to must win. Italy at home's a must win, and then Wales, not in their best form, might be there for the taking as well. So you actually go from strongest side in the world rankings down to weakest. It is literally strongest to weakest as the world rankings currently sit. So that might seem tough. But as I said, Ireland away before they can get settled, and then France at home. If you win both of those, then jeepers, you're in with a heck of a shot. If you lose both of those, then you're just kind of scraping through to get the best possible finish. But I feel like with that fixtures list, you need to win at least one of the 2 of the first games, and then look to win the remaining 3. Then you're in with a shout come the last week, but kind of have to wait and see. If you want some England gear, check out England Rugby Store. They're an affiliate of this channel. They've got a New Year's sale on, at least last time I checked. If you want to make the most of that, check the link down in the description. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. How do you reckon ITOJE is going to go as captain? He's a fiery dude, but yeah, as I said, very ever-present in terms of his selection. Plays a lot of minutes under Steve Borthwick, and he's one of the best kind of dominant tacklers and lineup disruptors in the game. And yeah, what do you think the expectations are? I feel like they need to be decently high. If England finish 3rd in the Six Nations, I reckon it'll be disappointing. They need to be in it come that last week, even if they finish 2nd. But you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.